Thank you for the introduction and also for having me here online today. So yeah, my name is Josephine and I work at Celonis. I'm currently based here in Munich. So you can also see on the picture, this is the main square of Munich where also Celonis headquarters is. And we also have offices around the globe, which I will also tell you later on. But first of all, for today, this talk is going to be also about the practical side of what we do at the Academic Alliance. So this is the department where we foster education as well as research about process mining, so the technology that Celonis is based on. And for all of you in this call to also have the opportunity to work with our software, I attached the sign-up link. First of all, before we start, because for later on, I will also give you a live demo in the software. This is called the Intelligent Business Cloud, so the academic version. And you affiliated to the university, students and researchers and professors will all have the opportunity to sign up by simply typing in this link, celonis.com academic sign up, or scanning the QR code. And if you sign up with your academic email address, you can later on follow me during the live demo presentation. So you can also have a first glimpse at how the Celonis Intelligent Business Cloud looks like. So I'll just leave this link for a second and give you some time to sign up. And we will also come back to this later on. So yeah, as we heard, Celonis is based on the technology of process mining, and our product is the Intelligent Business Cloud. So basically the software that analyzes processes that are everywhere around us and wants to transform them into extraordinary and positive experiences for everybody. So not only for people working in a company, but also for customers being clients of a specific company. And as you can also see here in the couple of numbers I brought to you, we had, since the foundation of Celonis in 2011, we had a great growth per year, over 100% every year. We have 2,000 and more enterprise deployments at the moment. And also an interesting number is that we're steadily growing our number of employees. So we are at the moment currently more than 800 employees and steadily growing. So yeah, also what I mentioned beforehand, we have offices around the world. So not only in Munich, but also another headquarter in New York or other offices in the US, as well as in London, in Kosovo, in Pristina, where a lot of developers work, or also in Tokyo, for example. So for this talk today, I prepared the following agenda. So we'll have, first of all, an introduction to process excellence and why processes are so important and a key success factor for companies nowadays. In the second part, I will dive into the theory of process mining and explain you how process mining actually works. It comes from academia, so it's an academic research discipline, and I want to show to you how companies are using it. And then in the third part, as I mentioned beforehand, there will be the live demo in the Intelligent Business Cloud of Celonis, where you also have the opportunity to sign up for as students and also follow me during the live demo in your own Intelligent Business Cloud accounts. In the end, we have some time for questions, but if there's anything in the meantime, feel free to ask, either in the chat or just unmute yourselves so you can post a question and I'm happy to answer. So starting with the process excellence, I brought the following statistics for you. So if you think of back in the 1955, there were 12% of the companies that were in the Fortune 500 ranking in 1955 remained in this ranking of successful companies worldwide up until today. And the question we can ask here is, what happened to the 88% of the companies who did not manage to remain in this ranking? And there are several reasons that we can think of. And the main reason is here that companies who did not manage to stay in this ranking of successful companies maybe did not go with this impulse of the time or the thrive for digital transformation. So there are a lot of different factors that are actually driving the companies that are successful today. And I summarized some of them for you in this graph. So first of all, we see that the driving factor for companies is customer centricity. So this means that the customer is always in center. The product that a company maybe has is always user-friendly because the customer is really in the center of the whole company. Then there are shorter product cycles. Another key driving factor is also robotization, especially in, for example, the automotive industry, where a lot of robots are also deployed in order to manufacture. Another reason is also the winner takes it all market. So if we think, for example, of online delivery of Amazon. This is really a new field of this online delivery or same-day delivery that Amazon pioneered, and a lot of other competitors actually got out of this market. So Amazon was the winner in this on-time or same-day delivery. So one winner takes it all market is also a driving factor of companies nowadays. Of course, also, if we think of globalization, the supply chains get not only more complex, but also have to be more digital. And finally, especially in the fashion industry, there's a lot of mass customization of products. So, for example, Adidas allows you to design your own sneakers, for example, which also creates a certain brand loyalty, bringing us back to the customer centricity that we had as the first driving factor up here. And now I actually want to ask you, if you think of some of these successful companies, of which we had the driving factors until now, and put yourself into the shoes of a customer of these companies. So think of, for example, an experience, a very painful, negative experience that you had within the last month. And I'm just going to stop for a couple of seconds so you have some time for this thought experiment of thinking of negative customer experiences that you had recently. And you might come up with different answers. For example, what I had, and in actually not in the last month, but beforehand, when I was still allowed to travel before the COVID regulations, I was really having a lot of delays when I was traveling by train, or trains were cancelled, or sometimes flights were delayed. So you can see here people waiting in a waiting line for the next flight, for example. Another negative customer experience is also opening, for example, a bank account where you have to call a customer service. You usually have to wait for a long time. It takes time to be in the waiting line, and then maybe you have an employee not being able to help you at the same time or in the same moment. So you get frustrated as a customer. And also another thing that I also experienced myself was facing empty shelves in the supermarket during the COVID crisis, because there was a lot of difficulties in the supply chain, and many products were actually missing in the supermarkets. So maybe you came up with some similar experiences in the last months, or even additional ones. But what is actually at the bottom line of all of these experiences are different processes. And we also want to have as a key message today that processes are the engine, so the motor or the backbone of every experience that we have as customers. And that's why they are so important to look at in order to have successful companies. And this is exactly what we also see here in these examples of, for example, Google or Amazon or Uber. So we have here the website of Amazon, where we see that the website maybe has not the most innovative designs, but the good thing is that the processes behind this website are working really well. So these are excellent processes, and actually make it possible that a client gets their products delivered in the same day. And this online delivery, as I mentioned before, that Amazon really pioneered in this field. And Also in the other example of Google. So for example, when I was still a student, I used Google Scholar quite a lot in order to research different papers for a research paper I had to write. And usually on the first page of the search engine, I usually had the results that I was looking for by typing in some of the keywords, and the algorithm behind the Google Scholar website was working well. So I had a good experience as a student or the Google Scholar customer in this case. Then finally, Uber is also an example where we see how comfortable it makes it actually is for the customers when the processes are working, or the processes behind the product are working well. And especially in Uber, you can order a taxi and you immediately see on your app at what time it will pick you up. And this makes it really easy for you to use in showing this customer centricity again. So what is actually at the bottom line of these three companies is this process excellence that I'm talking about today, and why this is really at the heart of excellent or successful companies today. So we want to look at processes and also look at how we can turn them into extraordinary experiences for everybody. And this could also be for you as a student, being involved in the university, where you also have different processes, for example, publication processes, or signing up for an exam, signing up into an online learning platform. So all of these processes we can actually look at by process mining, and this is also the vision of Celonis that I put up for you here. Now, I mentioned the word quite a lot. So what is actually a process? And I brought a definition for you where we can see that, especially in a business context, a business process or a business method is a collection of activities that are related to each other, appear in a certain order, so they're structured in a way, and they deliver a specific service or product. And this usually meets the entire business goal of the company, of that business we are looking at. And I brought in an example for you, which is easily accessible for everybody who has already ordered food, or in this case, a pizza online. And we see here the different sequences or the different activities of this pizza delivery process. So first of all, the process is starting here by the customer ordering, for example, via phone, tells the order, so what pizza he wants, he or she wants, and this order has to be assigned to a specific chef or someone who bakes the pizza in the pizzeria. And this is then the next step where we see the pizza has to be baked. So this is the baking process. Then later on, once it's done, it has to be packaged, and a delivery guy, in this case a scooter, delivers the pizza to the house of the customer, where he receives the pizza, and the customer has to pay for the pizza. And this is where the process ends. So here we see an ideal process flow, actually, of the different activities that are all involved in this pizza delivery process. However, there might be a lot of deviations. So actually, different versions how this process can look like. And if we think, for example, of this scenario where the pizza is actually already in the baking process, but the customer maybe calls again because he had been waiting for too long and cancels the order, this would mean that the process ends earlier. So there are no more steps of packaging, delivering, and payment because the order is canceled beforehand. So we skip the last activities of this ideal process flow, which also means that the customer does not get a pizza anymore, of course, because it was canceled. On the other hand, it also shows that the pizzeria is losing money because they were already baking the pizza, but then the pizza is not delivered. So they maybe have to throw it, and this costs extra money for the pizzeria. Another scenario could be that there are problems during the delivery. So for example, the delivery guy does not find the correct address, or there's some problems in maybe during the delivering process. And so in this example of not finding the address, the order has to be assigned again. maybe the pizza was cold during this time, so the pizza has to be baked again, packaged again, then the delivery happens again, actually, and then in the end, once the pizza is delivered and paid, the process ends. So we see this extra loop, so double activities, which also shows us inefficiency in our process because it takes, again, extra time and extra money, and the customers may be not satisfied because the process takes so long. Then there could be another scenario where there's something going wrong in the baking process. So for example, the pizza gets burned, there's some ingredients missing. And so we see this loop around the baking process here, which also shows that there are several minutes in this specific activity. So also slow down the whole process and cost time, money, and decreased customer satisfaction if the customer has to wait even longer then. So we see a lot of different deviations here from this ideal process path. And this is also important to keep in mind when we think of process mining, because this is where we actually look at the process and want to improve it. And now I'm jumping into the theory of process mining. So first of all, we see that, as I mentioned before, process mining comes from academia. So there was Professor van der Aalst at Eindhoven University in the Netherlands, who started with this discipline, and it's an interdisciplinary approach. So you take knowledge from data science, so for example, data mining, statistics, machine learning, predictive analysis, in order to look at processes in a company. So this is where you combine data science and process science. And within process science, there's process management, process control, process improvement, and for example, also ways of automating specific activities in a process. So just keep in mind, process mining is really sitting at the intersection between data science and process science. And this is an analogy to, or a metaphor, in order to explain how process mining works in companies. So first of all, if we have a plane crash somewhere on Earth, and what is the first thing that you would look for in order to reconstruct why this plane crash has happened? It's the black box, as you probably assumed. And this black box is really there to see all the data that were logged before the plane crash happened. And we have a kind of black box, like in an airplane, also in companies. And this is exactly in this part of the information systems. So everything, every process that occurs in a big company is logged in information systems. And there are different systems that can serve here as an example, but just for you to keep in mind how this works, this is really the black box within process mining. And you see here this graph, again, based on Professor van der Aalst, where we see that from these information systems, we extract the data, so-called event logs, in order to discover or compare it with a process model. So this is here the process model that you get, as we had it before in the pizza example, seeing how the ideal process flow would actually look like. And from this process model, you can also refer back to the activities as they occur in the company, or in this case, in the real world. So this process model is also there to structure these real world activities that are, as I mentioned before, stored and controlled by the information systems. So you see here in this diagram on an overview how process mining works and how the technology works. I also put a definition for you here. As I mentioned beforehand, the purpose of process mining is really to reconstruct a process, then analyze it, and in the last part, improve it. And this is all based on these log data from the informational systems that we extract, and then put it into a software like Celonis in order to be able to visualize and improve the process. And as I mentioned before, process mining is also bridging the gap between model-based process analysis and data-centric analysis techniques. So really sitting at the intersection between both disciplines. Now, if we want to zoom in the different parts of this diagram, we'll start on the top left with these real-world activities. And again, for you as a little thought experiment, just think of all the digital footprints that you left behind this morning before logging into this lecture today. So you can also think of different scenarios. For example, you paid something online or contactless, or you signed into the Zoom call that we are in today. Maybe you bought something online or you had to travel somewhere. So all of these activities that we see here that you as a student also perform on a regular basis, they are all stored in these IT systems and leave behind this digital footprint. And these IT systems or information systems can be of various kinds. So for example, it could be a customer relations management system, for example, Salesforce, where a specific part of our process is stored. And then the important thing is that another activity of the same process that we see here in this example might be stored in another IT system, for example, an enterprise resource planning system like SAP. And then, yeah, it goes on with different systems here. So you can really see that in order to do process mining, you have to leverage data from all different IT systems in order to be able to visualize the whole process. So it's important to keep this variety of IT systems in mind and also think of ways to extract data from all of these different systems. Then, as we also saw beforehand, these event logs, or also called activity tables, are the core in order to do process mining. So there are specifically 3 points or data points that we need at the minimum in order to start doing process mining. And you can see this here in this example event log of a purchasing process, where we see, first of all, the case ID. So in this example, it's an order number. We have 3 different ones, 1, 2, 3 here. And all of these case IDs perform different activities, which we see in the second column, the activity table, the activity column. So we see in this table here all of the different activities, for example, creating a purchase order, scanning the invoice, booking an invoice, etc. And of course, the timestamp is also really important in order to know at what time, what date this activity was performed. So these 3 things are really important: case ID, activity, and timestamp, in order to be able to do process mining. And you also see optional columns here, for example, the resource. So in this case, the user of a company logging the different activities in the system, or also, since we're talking about an ordering process, the quantity of how many products are ordered. And this is then also in this optional column of quantity. And keeping in mind these 3 important data in order to do process mining, we can then jump to the process mining techniques, where we actually compare this event log, so the as-is data. First of all, we discover it, and we then have a process model. So we generate a theoretical model from the processes as they occur in reality. And then in the second part is the conformance, where we compare the event log with this model. And we can perform a diagnosis in order to see whether the as-is data are conforming and also, really being congruent, conforming with the to-be model. So this is done in the conformance check, where you actually do a comparison of the 2. And then in the last part, because process mining is also really about enhancing, improving the process, we again take the model and compare it with the as-is data, and can also really take the insights of the discovery and the conformance in order to extend or enhance the model and improve the process in this sense. So these 3 techniques are the most important to remember for process mining: discovery, conformance, and enhancement. And now I really want to show you an example of a process, for example, the purchase to pay, in short, P2P process. I chose this process because it's a core business process and also a really complex process at the same time. So we see that a lot of different departments might be involved in a company. So for example, the procurement department, accounting department, that are all involved in this purchase to pay process. And we see here the different activity steps in the twofold process. So first of all, the purchasing part of our process, where the purchase order is created, sent out to the vendor where we want to purchase from. And once the goods are there, the payment follows. So the invoice has to be sent out and also received by the buying company. And in the end, of course, the company has to pay for the product that they ordered. And this is just for you to have a first overview of the purchase to pay process. I would also like to show this to you in the live demo. So first of all, in order for you to follow me through this demo, feel free to sign up to the academic version of the Intelligent Business Cloud. So you will have your own Intelligent Business Cloud team, where you will also see the same process that I'm going to show you in a second. So I just stop here for a short time so you can get this link, celonis.com academic-sign up, and sign up with your academic email address in order to be able to follow through the live demo later on. You also see the link in the chat where you can simply click on it in order to sign up. All right, so then we can go on with the live demo. So once you signed up to your own academic access to the Intelligent Business Cloud, you will see the following as I'm showing you here on my screen. So if you just navigate through Process Analytics, you see all of these different demo data that are already in the academic version. And as I showed you beforehand, we want to focus on the purchase to pay demo. So by clicking on purchase to pay European version, you will end up seeing the purchase to pay analysis as I'm showing it to you here. And first of all, to have an overview, we are looking at more than 1 million purchase order items, which correspond to a net order value of more than 2 billion euros in this case. And we're looking at 1 out of 655 variants. This covers 38% of all the cases that we're looking at. And in this first part, as I showed you beforehand, we really want to discover the different variants, the different versions of how this process could also look like. And first of all, in the first variant, we see the different process steps. So as I also showed you beforehand, first of all, creating a purchase requisition item. In the second step, creating a purchase order item. Then the purchase order is sent to the vendor. Once the goods are received, the invoice has to be sent and received. And then the invoice has to be cleared in the end, and this is where the process ends. So this is the happy path, the ideal process path that we have here. However, there are a lot of different other variants. And if I want to show you the second one, you can simply filter on the second by dragging the second variant as well. And we see a little deviation from the happy path by skipping the first activity and starting directly with creating the purchase order item. This is the second variant, and we're looking at more than 50% of all the cases. Now, in the third variant, we all of a sudden have a new price or a new activity popping up, which is the price change. And you can already see here that looking at the time, it takes us extra time. So 7 plus 10, 17 extra days of a manual activity that someone in a company has to perform in order to go back to the system, adjust the price, and this of course takes extra time and costs the company extra money. So we can already see here a first inefficiency in our process. And to keep that in mind for later, I just want to show you the complete process picture by filtering on all the variants, and you will get the so-called spaghetti net, where you see all of the different variants. And I showed you beforehand that it's a very complex process. So you can really see this here in the visualization of the purchase to pay process here, how complex this process can look like. And now we're covering all of the cases that we're looking here in this data set. Now, if we also want to have a look at the conformance check, so basically navigating through one of the other sheets. One second. So on the bottom, you should see the different sheets of the overview are also okay, one second. Here on the bottom, you should also see the different dashboards. So for navigating from the process where we just were into the conformance check, you should be able to see, first of all, how many cases are conforming to our process model. And in order to show you the process model, you can simply go on View Process Model. So here we can see all the different activities that are in our happy path. So the first variant that we had beforehand. And this is the ideal process flow. So our model, and we want to compare the as-is data, as we just saw on the spaghetti net, with this model. And then in this case, you can see that 56% of the cases we are looking at are conforming with this model. However, this means that we have 16 different violations that are not conforming with the process model. And by scrolling down, we can also see which of these violations is occurring in most of the cases. So in this example, it's in 14% of the cases the price change. So this manual step that I showed you beforehand in the third variant. And by clicking on it, you get a lot of information about in how many percent of the cases this violation occurs, how many violation cases there are, what extra time this could cost. And by performing a root cause analysis, we can also see which of the vendors is mostly related to this violation. So in this case, the umbrella corporation, in what city it occurs, this would be in Chicago. And all of these information are already prompted automatically by the Celonis software by comparing the SS data with the should-be model. And you get this list of this overview where most of these violations actually occur. These are ordered by correlations. So you see it here, sort by violation strength. By clicking on it, you can also see, again, the violating cases or how large the correlation is actually between the data and the data model. And so if we just have a look at this conformance, we can already see that the umbrella corporation is mostly affiliated with or correlated with this price change. And as I did not show it to you beforehand, we could have also seen this in our discovery by filtering on this price change in the third variant. So you can filter on a specific activity by simply selecting the filters. And then also looking here at, with the question in mind, which of the vendors has most of the purchase order items, we can directly see the answer here, that the umbrella corporation, as we also saw in the conformance check, in the automatic response of Celonis, we can also see it here, that more than 50,000 purchase order items are going through a price change of this umbrella corporation. So exactly what we saw in the conformance check is also, this is another way to also see in the dashboards and find the answer to our analysis questions. So this is it for the demo. I'm going to jump back into the presentation to round off. So again, I would like to invite you to also have a look at this later on. You can see a lot of different demo data as well. But to finish off this talk for today, I also want to show you that process mining as a technology is also is actually possible to perform this over different industries. So cross industry, for example, in manufacturing, where we have Siemens as a customer, or also in high tech, where SAP and Uber, that we were also mentioning before, are involved. In process mining also works in global players of telecommunications or the financial industry, as well as aerospace and defense. So, for example, airlines like Lufthansa are also using process mining in order to really analyze their processes and improve them thanks to the process mining technology. And then I also would like to invite you to the Celonis online training platform. Maybe we can also share the link in the chat so everyone can also have a look at this later on. There you can sign up for free with your academic email address, and you have different options to go through different tracks. So, for example, learning how to build your own dashboards would be in the analyst track. Learning how to upload the data into the Celonis Intelligent Business Cloud would be in the data engineer track. So feel free to explore this later on. The Celonis Academy, just signing up for free and in this link, celonis.com /training. And with that last invitation, I would also like to ask or give you the chance to ask some questions. Just feel free to unmute yourself or use the chat. And I'm happy to answer all of your questions that you have about process mining or Celonis.